Hello everybody, welcome to Music Talk Live number 46. Sorry. How are you all? I'm good, thanks. As a matter of fact, that is art. I'm gonna start right up with your question from last week. Hello Alex, hello everyone. If you're new to the chat room, please join and let me know where you're from. And I hope this finds you all very well. Hello Reki. And so since last week was a kind of a success as far as lighting goes, I'm repeating the formula. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. I'm still at 5,000, I think, the resolution, the bit rate. So if you have any slowdowns, let me know, but I think it will work pretty well. So what's up everyone? Let me just get this out of the way. One thing I want to talk about really quickly, and Alex mentioned it last time, but I went to look at the went to have a look at the what do you call them? The YouTube thing, the analytics, and it's true that like it says the videos are not given to anyone unless they hit the bell or they have like complete notifications turned on. So that explains a lot. Like I have a lot of subscribers, or a decent amount, but I have a hard time reaching people. So if you're new here, or if you're not new and you just haven't checked, make sure that you have your bell rung, right? And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I totally understand you not wanting to get notified all the time. But then you kind of have to look me up often, because now we're up to maybe 2 or 3 even videos a week. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you look me up if you don't want to hit the bell. But if you want to hit the bell, I'll try to make good videos so I'm not spamming you with shitty videos. But I think that explains a lot. As a matter of fact, the YouTube analytics page says, your videos are not given to anyone almost, because so few people have hit the bell. And I think that changed a while ago. Like when I first started on YouTube in 2008, I think it wasn't that important. I don't even think the bell was there. And so if you were a subscriber, you would get the notification. But now I think with more and more channels, more and more content, more and more people on the platform, I think they have to filter it somehow. But I did get some messages from people who said, wow, I didn't even know you were on YouTube anymore. And, I've been pretty steady for the past year. And they've been just telling me that they never knew I was back on YouTube after the encyclopedia. So you can imagine, encyclopedia was 2000, what was that, 16? Something like that. So this will give you an idea, right? But, or 14, something like that. But anyway, so hit the bell if you haven't done so. I think it's important and it will help me out for sure. So what have you guys been up to? That is art. I'm going to get into your question about legato playing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right away, and then we'll just have a chat. And of course, as always, you can ask me anything, and I'll help you out if I can on Saturdays. Otherwise, we'll just talk about music and maybe some news about the music world, gear, whatever you want. But you asked me last week about playing legato, and the song you pull up was Rush's Closer to the Heart. And that's a different example though, because it's played fingerstyle and it's played on a 12 string, I think. It sounds like a 12 string acoustic. And so that's a bit of a different thing. You just let your strings ring as you play the arpeggio. But since we're here, I'm going to show you a little something that you can do to ensure you have control on the way the playing sound legato. Yeah? So I'll give you a little exercise. Pick a sound with a bit of sustain like this one. Right? And you can practice on one string at the beginning. So you pick one string and you play a note, and then you can use a metronome or you can do it in your head, but keep a steady rhythm. And then maybe count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2. So what you're doing is trying to get the sound of each note to kind of fall into the next note. Now on the guitar, on one string, you can't do that, right? It's limited by the physics of the guitar, but you can get close to it. So really stretch the first note all you can so that it kind of falls into the next one. Right? I hope you see what I mean. Now, this is one of the extremes on guitar. So on guitar we have the most extreme form of legato, because legato is not a technique. On the guitar we assume legato is this, right? But legato, as far as musical term, means simply that the notes are tied together and they sound smooth one into the other. So the other thing, the other extreme on the guitar would be to have a very heavy pick, right? So you can practice both and compare. You can do one run with legato. So keep in mind I'm using the pick, right? This is legato, not legato as in technique, but legato as in sound. And then switch. And back. Okay, so this will give a bit of an idea. Then you can move it to more strings. You can do so when you change strings, you have another issue, which is to be able to hold on to a string just the right amount of time. If you hold on it too long, you get this sound, which you don't want. If you let it go too soon, you get this sound, which you also don't want. So you kind of have to find a middle ground there. Gain control of how you relate to the string with your fingers, and also coordinate both hands, because if this is a bit out of sync, you get this sound instead of this. Right, so that's the first thing. And then you can try to improvise a little bit. Sorry, I didn't say what I was doing. You should go from one extreme to the other. So very staccato, extreme legato, and then maybe a mix. So I'm using a bit of the pick, a bit of the legato, and a bit of the staccato, and you can try to practice three things at once, because really when you're playing, that's what you'll do. You'll do a lot of everything. So you see, whatever it is you're doing, you match all techniques depending on what it is you're doing. And actually, if you have control of the different facets of this and the different intensities of legatos, then your improvisation will be much better. And is the microphone clipping? I'm seeing a bit of red here on the OBS audio thing. Let me know if you can hear me all right. Let's see. Let me check. Check 1, 2. It looks good here, but let me know if it's clipping on your end. So that's one good exercise you can do, and it will help you out probably with your technique. I don't know, of course, what I'm playing, because as always, I'm tied to not wearing headphones, but I think you get an idea. Yeah. All right, cool. So what have you guys been up to this week? I've been actually looking into DAWs. I don't know why, because I've been with Pro Tools since before it was called Pro Tools, but it was DigiDesign at the very beginning, probably since 2002 or 3. I've been in Pro Tools, but I have Luna, the one with by Universal Audio that comes with Apollo, and I've been experimenting with that. It's kind of cool. Reminds me more of an old console than Pro Tools. But it's really cool. And then I was trying to get into the more modern DAWs, and so I looked at all these. What do you guys play? What do you use? I've been looking at Ableton, but it looks like a spaceship to me. It's a bit confusing, but it seems so interesting because it's probably a totally different way of looking at things. A friend of mine has it. He showed it to me, and I'm like, wow. It's totally different from what I'm used to. And the way clips work, and the tracks, the whole setup, and then I looked at, Luna. This is the one I've been using for the past 2 weeks, and this is the Universal Audio one. I stole this screen, of course. It's not my computer, so I hope I'm not infringing on anybody's copyright. But this is really cool. I've been using that, and because I had a lot of plugins already, because I've been using Apollos and Universal Audio for such a long time, then I can get started with Luna with quite a bit of advantage, because I have the tapes and I have some of the preamps and all that stuff. So that's really interesting. But then Luna is quite similar to Pro Tools in a way. So I've been going into Logic Pro, which I got a long time ago. I bought Logic Pro. And I don't know, I could never quite figure out why I didn't like it, but I didn't like it. It was maybe the instrument icons. It looks so amateur, and I know you can remove them, but it's just I don't know, something about Logic Pro I didn't like. But at the same time, I see so many people using it, and you know, the workflow is very interesting. And some people say it doesn't really sound very good, and that's something that a lot of people don't seem to talk about. But each DAW has a specific sound. I did try it actually with Ableton. We run a mix through Ableton, and then we run a mix through Pro Tools, and Pro Tools sounded a lot better. Luna sounded a lot better. Logic Pro, I heard by people who know about this stuff, that it doesn't really sound too good. The Logic, I don't know what you call it, it's basically the bouncing, the mix down engine. And so they say it's probably the worst of its kind. Cubase and Nuendo, they have very good reputations as far as sound goes. And Ableton, I think people were saying not too long ago that it didn't sound too good, but I think it has improved. But anyway, it was just not a matter of sound for me, it was a matter of workflow, and I'm very interested in different new workflows for DAWs, but learning new DAWs is like, I don't know, you know, if I have a list of things I want to do before I die, learning a new DAW is not really high up there. So I've been thinking, you know, how much time I want to devote to this, and so far I don't have the energy to to get started on that, but who knows, maybe one day. Let's see, you use Cakewalk, so I hate to lean on something new, but it's cool to see others. Yeah, Cakewalk is fine, I think. You use Live? Wow, Reason and Reaper, Reki, so you're into the electronic side. Cool. So Reason, I don't know anyone who uses Reaper anymore, but I think there's quite a healthy community there. Maybe it wouldn't take long to learn others after learning Cakewalk. Probably not, but again, you know, it's like, what do I want to spend my time on, you know? Even just playing the guitar, I think, is more fun than learning a DAW. But I thought the DAW has nothing to do with the sound. Oh yes, a lot of people think that, but actually it does. And I think Reaper has some pretty good reviews on that. But if you can actually have two DAWs on your computer and you run the same session, so you would have to have the stems or even each track, don't touch anything, put them on, do a mix down, and then listen to the result, you'll hear it. As a matter of fact, you'll actually hear it. And yeah, but you will hear it. And then you will think, wow, you know, is it worth the change? You know, is it worth changing DAWs just to get a bit of a different sound? I use Reaper because I'm used to it. Okay, and okay, Hirasol, you also use Reaper. A lot of people use Reaper. I agree, learning guitar is better time spent for me too. Yes, but yeah, that's not an opinion. You know, it's an actual fact. I'm not an expert on computer science, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's certainly, you know, it has something to do with the sound. The big thing that I've always noticed with sound, to me, has always been the converters, the ADDA, and a lot of people just don't seem to pay attention to it, and to me it's such a big deal. Probably less now, because in 2020 or 2021, I think even the cheaper sound cards, they have much better converters than they did before. For example, a student here asked me what interface to buy, and I suggested he get let me just lower it a little bit. I don't know why it's clipping into the red today, and it's the same exact setup as I always have. But he says that he didn't know what to buy, so I suggested the SSL sound card, the solid state logic. They make the big consoles, and that has some great converters for the price. I think it's under 200 euros. So they're getting a lot better. But when I first started out, we talked a little bit about it before. When I recorded Powerboard Fantastic, I only had a DGO2, and I had no idea about anything. And I said, it doesn't matter. And I recorded the album, put it out, and then not too long after that, I upgraded to an RME. It was the UFX, the sound card, and I was with that sound card until I got the Apollo. And when I got the RME, I just turning the computer on and listening to Pro Tools through that. It was such a night and day difference, and I felt bad because I'm like, man, I just released Power Fantastic. If I had known, I would have waited and put it out using this card. But it was a big difference. Now I think it's a slight difference in color and character, but it's not such a big deal. So now basically any good sound card will give you decent, any decent sound card will give you good conversion. Stock plugins from each DAW. Oh yes, that is such a good point. Yes, Reaper is the cheapest DAW to buy right now. That's probably why people are using it. And the SSL preamps. Well, I don't know how much stock I'd put into those being actual SSL preamps, but I think that the 2 Plus might have something that's more similar to the preamps. But either way, as long as you get a sound card with an ADAT in, then you can also expand it later. And you can do that. As a matter of fact, with the Apollos, I can use 2 ADAT expanders and the optical ones. And I have 2 Behringers. I haven't even plugged them in, but the 8 expanders, I just use those for synths because I have so many synths and drum machines, and they don't need a preamp, so they just go into the line, and I think the converters are fine. So that's what I'm using. But otherwise, my main cards, then they do have good plugins. Good preamps. The Apollo preamps are really good, and they can accept other preamps like the Neve or the Universal Audio. So those are I think more important things nowadays than a sound card, strangely enough. But anyway, talking about the plugins, it's true. Like Logic, that's actually, Alex, that's such a great point you brought up, because it's exactly why I was talking about Logic. I'm like, why am I reconsidering Logic? Well, because it comes with so many plugins. And I'm lucky because I've been working with the guys at Pro Tools for a long time, so I have a bit of a break there. But still, the plugins that come with Logic, they're great. Studio One, for example, I heard many good things about it, but it's really not that different, I think, from what I'm using. So to me, that's why I was looking at Ableton and Logic, because they have such a different workflow, especially live, Ableton Live. And I might try, I might get the cheaper version. I think it's $99 or something. See if it works for me. Maybe just to do some totally different music, And Luna would be my rock studio console DAW, and then maybe live would be my strange DAW. Hello, Ilmiras. Wait, let's see. I also was thinking about. It doesn't matter about DAW differences. I get what I want out of Cakewalk. Okay, yeah, Cakewalk I haven't never tried. Cakewalk is free and good quality. Reaper is free and just as good. That's what I heard about Reaper. And Reaper, I think you can configure any way you want. Then there's Bitwig, right? But see, now just talking about this, it's making me lazy. Just talking about these DAWs and all the options, I'm like, okay, I'll stick to Pro Tools. But Pro Tools, I'm happy with the sound. Actually, I'm happy with the final sound. As a matter of fact, when you get to the level of Pro Tools, then the issue really is what you put into it. I'm not too concerned about Pro Tools mixdown engine screwing it up for me. I think there's much more room for disaster. What I'm doing, with the way I'm recording, the way I'm coming in, the gain staging, the actual processing I do on the sound, all that. I think it's more worrisome to me than the actual sound of the DAW, but you can try it. If you can download a free trial of one of those DAWs, do 2 mixdowns of the same exact session and you'll hear it, guaranteed. My cheap Scarlett 2nd generation has been working great for years, no need to replace it yet, but who knows. Yes, what you might find about the Scarlett will be what I was talking about, the converters. You might be surprised by a new one. Anyone know of any worthy word percussion plugins for Cakewalk? What does Cakewalk use? VST? Is it the VST format? Percussion, there's Spitfire has some cool ones. I'm always with Spitfire because that's basically all I have as far as libraries. Or do you want actually something to... Oh, world percussion. Sorry about that. Yeah. I did know about one, and it's kind of... I can't think of the name right now. It didn't come out too long ago. I don't know where I saw it either. Maybe it was one of the Sonic State things that they do. But you know what? Spitfire Audio just put up a lab. It's called Percussion, and it's completely free. And it has quite a bit of, Latin and maybe some Irish. I don't know exactly what's in there. I did try it 2 days ago. Played around with it. There's quite a bit there. There's like 3 octaves, I think, of samples. So check that out. It's called Spitfire Audio, and it's called Labs. And I think it's VST, AAX, and they have AU, so you'll be able to run it in Cakewalk, I think. Computer CPU is also a big deal if you use a lot of plugins. I think UA interfaces do some plugin processing. Well, as a matter of fact, the UA interfaces do everything on the card. They only have, they use their own chips for DSP. And I use both, but usually when I'm recording, I print the effects. So if I'm running a compressor, if I'm running a little bit of EQ, if I'm running a preamp, that gets printed. I don't go back and change it. So I actually put it into the Apollos, run my guitars through it, and that's recorded. Usually I have on different, at different levels of engagement. So sometimes they're completely transparent, but I usually have a preamp, that usually a Neve or an API or SSL, that's on the actual preamp coming in. So I might use the hardware, or I might use just the plugin for the Apollo. And I have that. Then I have my 1176 hardware or some kind of LA2A 1176 compressor on the plugin. And then I usually also have, the tape, the Studer tape. Those three things, I usually have them on, and if they're on, they get recorded. They get recorded straight onto Pro Tools, and you can't take them out. There's no turning back, and that helps me a lot because then I don't have to worry about it. I'm conservative with it, so compression I might just caress it a little bit, but if it needs it, if I have a guitar that I feel needs a bit of compression, I use it. And once it's in there, then it's done. So I save a lot of DSP or CPU for the computer just doing that. Then when it comes time to mixing, what I do often, or almost always, for the past few years actually, I use the SSL console by Brainworks. I think it's by Brainworks. I don't want to say a stupid thing. I got it from Plugin Alliance. I think it is Brainworks. And they have the SSL simulation, and that's what I use for mixing. So I usually come in with Neve or API, and then I mix down onto the SSL. And the SSL plugin, because I don't use many tracks, I don't have hundreds of tracks. Usually I try to limit myself to 48, which is kind of like a console. But even if I spill over a little bit, I think you can have 72 instances of that plugin, of the Brainworks SSL. So that goes onto all of my tracks before I even begin. And I do a lot of EQ and compression from the SSL. I don't go into other plugins. So a lot of my mixes are just one plugin, almost. And then if I need to do something surgical, then I might bring out, the stock EQ or some kind of precise compressor, or something like that, but usually I don't need to. And then those are run from the CPU, but then some other stuff like bus compressor, like maybe a Neve for the drums and all that, those are run by the Apollo. So I use both CPU and DSP. But when I come in, that's a trick. To me, the trick is that I always record as if it were hardware. So even if I might use hardware, I might use my Neves and the Universal Audio. I have one of the pre-end compressor on one unit in the Universal Audio thing, the LA610. So those I actually record them, and that's it. You can't go back. You record an acoustic guitar or a bass guitar through it, and if you do too much compression, then you're screwed. But you learn, and next time you'll do better. Or you might have to re-record it. But then, when it comes time to mix, my sessions sound like half mixed before I even touch them. I just have my volumes up, and it sounds almost like it's done. And then I go in and I go like, okay, what reverb I want, and all that. Because usually during the session, I would have just one reverb and one delay, very low CPU, very low latency, and I just do that just to give a bit of meaning to, if I have a guitar, then I might have a delay as a bus, and I just, okay, more or less, 16 and 8 or 8 and 4, whatever it is, play that, and then when it comes time to mix, then I'll focus on those. But usually I keep it very simple. Let's see. One thing that was so weird when I started recording on computer is latency. That was confusing until I used the right settings and then the effects. Oh yes. VST sounds familiar, but I'm not sure what Cakewalk uses. I'm sure it's VST because AU I think is the Logic thing, and AAX is only Pro Tools that I know. So you should check it out. Spitfire Audio Labs. They have a bunch of instruments, sound great, and they're 100% free. By the way, they're just as free as this book, which you should buy. Buy this, I mean, no, you shouldn't buy it because you can't. It's free. You should download it, all right? Download it, and I'm still thinking about making a series of videos on this, on one per lick. There's no strings attached. You can just find your way down here in the description, and you can download it, and it's 21 licks that are used in songs, so you can learn something useful. All right, that was a clumsy way into that, but anyway. Let's see. Totally agree. Basic sound for recording and editing plugins afterwards is a must using slow CPUs. Yes. Well, you know what? The other thing is that nowadays computers are so good that I'm tempted. You know, I'm waiting on Apple to release the new M2 or M1X, whatever they're gonna call it, the new chip. And I'm tempted. This computer is 2015 actually, but you know, I bought it. What do you call it? I bought it, you know, with 32 gigs of RAM. I actually installed that myself. It has a fast hard drive, but what do you call it? But you know, you see these new computers and you're like, man, I need it for this and that, and I don't think I do necessarily. But what I find is getting old on my computer is the USB ports and all that. You know, there's the old Thunderbolt, and there's no USB-C. That's what I find a problem. I'm plugging everything into these old USB hubs, and you know, it's not optimal. I can work, but it's not optimal. But the computer itself is working great, and it's 6 years old. And I think maybe that's one thing with Macs, that they're expensive, but they're, I think, a bit more future-proof than other computers. That I've noticed. Whereas some of my friends are changing computers every 2 or 3 years. This is still going strong, and it's 2015, so I can probably go 5 more years with it. The thing is, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I probably want to buy a new one. Let's see. No strings attached. No, that's true though. Some people say, oh, it's a free course or a free thing, but then I want your email, and I want this, and I want that. I don't want people to be scared off by that. So the book is 100% free. Can't wait for you to demonstrate the 21 licks. Oh yes, I will do that. As a matter of fact, now I'm kind of tied up with the Theory Thursday series. I don't know if you guys watched it. It comes out on Thursdays. I'm thinking of making another one for next week. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe one every 2 weeks or one every week. And we'll start with some basic stuff, and then we'll go into the more advanced thing. But they will be kind of short. This was about 8 minutes, I think, which for me is a success because I can never make short videos. I can never make short anything because I talk too much. But you know, I'll make a few, and then we'll do some like one example of this and one of that. So very random kind of. I would think we'll keep things interesting. I don't want to make a course on theory. You know, that's to me is boring. I did not as easy as I thought. Yes, that's a good thing. I'm also trying to give a little exercise at the end of each of the theory videos. I will try to do that. Let's see how it goes. You know, it's only the first one. And let's see if more people watch it, because otherwise it's just so much work to do all this stuff. And I'll keep doing it, but you know, there's a limit, I think, to how much you can do, you know. But give it a bit more time, and then we'll see. But I do want to do the 21 licks videos, that's for sure. But you know what? There's a little something that's going to change in the next couple of months, or 3 months at the most. You'll know about it soon. And before I commit to something so time-consuming, as for example the 21 licks thing, I really have to sit down and do it. I can't come and go with it. I just want to, if I start doing it, then I will do it, you know, and that will be the project, the video project. And so I'm holding on just for a little while, then I will give you the news. Nothing too big, but there will be changes, so I will have to move everything, and well, I'll tell you later. I'm going on the road, kind of, but I won't go into details. I'm not for concerts, you know, that's something we can't do right now. But that's maybe for next year. But for now, there's gonna be some changes, kind of cool, kind of exciting, but kind of involved too. So maybe the 21 licks thing will wait until maybe the summer or the end of the summer. In the meantime, I'll keep doing the Theory Thursdays thing. And that's why I also recorded all the one chord a week thing that people say, you're crazy, you recorded like 40 videos, what's going on? The reason is that because there's some things are going to happen that I won't be able to follow a schedule of recording videos. I wanted to have that done. That's why I went crazy with that. I recorded so many videos. I can't even remember the chords I recorded, but I hope you guys are enjoying it. So, all right, so any questions? Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to tell you about, which I'm very interested in, is this. Check this out. This is Abbey Road Studios, and they're opening it up for tours this summer. So Abbey Road, of course, famous for the Beatles, but for everything else, really. So many soundtracks and so many albums were recorded here. And they're always closed. I've been there, but you can't go in. And this summer, I think, for a week or two, they're going to open it up for public, and you can go and do tours of Abbey Road. If you can travel to England, right? That's another thing. But if sometimes, if you are in London for any reason, then you can go and visit Abbey Road. I don't know how it works, but I just read that. I don't even know where, but it would be I would love to go there. You see where the Beatles sat when they recorded, and the thing with these places though is that so many things change through the years. They move stuff around, they change the floor, so it's not exactly as if it were I don't think it's exactly the same as it was when the Beatles recorded, for example. But I think didn't they record Star Wars, the soundtrack? I think it was recorded there. There's so many albums also that were made there. I would also love to visit some of the Queen studios, like in LA. I think they recorded at Sunset Sound. They did the Works, so I was there, and I'm like, man, I can't believe it. Freddie Mercury was sitting right here, right here where I am, mixing Radio Gaga and I Want to Break Free. There's so many studios that people use. There's stuff Bob Marley recorded in London. There's it's crazy, a lot of stuff. Prince is another thing. Prince also recorded at Sunset in Los Angeles. Prince used to close. He would rent two studios and have a team in one and a team in the other, and he would go record a song and then jump into the other studio, record another song while the first studio was still being used for mixing and editing his performances for the first song. So he could do 2 songs a day at Sunset. And he would just rent it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and he would say, okay, you record me in this one, and you record me in that one. I heard a story of Prince that he recorded a whole album. He said it was an interview with Susan Rogers, I think her name is, one of the first engineers he had. I think she came in right at the time of Purple Rain, and I know she stayed until she did Son of the Times with him, and then I don't know how many years later, maybe 4 years later, she left. And she said that at one point he said, okay, run tape, don't stop. When I stop, you don't stop. And he started playing drums, and he would play for 4 minutes or whatever it is, no click track, of course, and then he would stop, pause for like 20 seconds, and then start playing again for another 4 or 5 minutes, then stop. And he would do that, and then he said, okay, rewind the tape, and now I'm going to do the bass. And he would record the bass. And so he recorded a whole album in sequence, all instruments. That's what one thing he did. So if sometimes you think you have writer's block or something, think of Prince. All right, maybe it's just that we're lazy sometimes, because I heard a lot of stories of studio sessions with Neil Young. My girlfriend's old man produced him in the 60s. Wow, that's so cool. Well, share some stories. Yeah, I love studio stories. Like who I ran into so many people sometimes in studios, and you're like, oh my God, that's Joey Ramone, or so many people. But the ones that I truly would have killed would be Queen. I mean, just imagine that. I was too young for that though. But yeah, the Abbey Road thing would be cool. Do you guys have any questions about guitar? Maybe you need some advice or some help with anything? I'll be happy to help. Or if you want to share anything, any experience in the studio or whatever it is you want to do, we'll do. We'll keep the Saturday streams very relaxed. Well, Jenny, don't just say it, share it. Share some stories. I will think of some too. I will think of some stories. But times are so different now because everybody kind of seems to think they know everything. So, but when we started, you go into a studio, and studios were like, you couldn't just go to a studio. You couldn't just even walk into a studio without some kind of reason for it. Even simple things like I don't know. There was no Kemper then, but even one of these big amps, few people had those, because what are you gonna do with it? You're gonna play it at home. So most guitar players, like today, if you just play at home today, you probably have your amp simulators, you have your synthesizers, you have your speakers, you have your foam on the walls, you have your bass trap. You know how to do bass traps. You have all this stuff, even desks. And back then it wasn't like that. You would just do it on your dad's office desk if you had an office at home or whatever it was, and you have a 4-track if you were lucky, or just a little tape machine, and you didn't know anything. There was no way for you to learn about any of this stuff except for some books. I had a book by a guy called Ian, what is it? Ian something. He made a book, said how to record, how to use a Porta Studio. Porta Studio was like the Tascam 4-track, and in it talked about microphones, how to mic up a kick drum, a snare. But it was a paragraph like this, and now you can go online and find 1,000 videos how to mic up a kick drum. But it was cool because you're like, wow, so people do that, and we had no idea how it was done. And the first time you walked into a studio, you saw like 5 microphones or 10 microphones at once. You saw these big cabinets. And it was crazy. It was so interesting. And now I think the magic is now people go like, what are you going to the studio for? You can do that at home. But really some of these people who work there, the engineers, were masters, truly masters. And we think we can do all this stuff at home, but it would be like somebody who doesn't quite know how to play the guitar or never play the guitar say, well, I watch videos on YouTube, so I can play guitar just as well as you can, but you've been doing it for 20 years, 12 hours a day. That's what those engineers used to do. So I learned a lot by just simply, you watch, say nothing, watch how they put the microphone up, watch how they test it, watch how they decide if a sound is good or not. Because in the beginning, you go like, it all sounds the same, right? And then they record the kick drum and they test it on the console and they switch the phase. And to you, it sounds the same, but there's a little something there that changes. And why are they picking that sound over that one? And that's how I really learned a lot about recording. Just by watching people who knew what they were doing. Maybe they weren't geniuses, right? But they were there all day, every day doing it, and you could learn and absorb. Now I think it's different because you're not there. You can watch the video, but it's not the same. You can tell me Charles Manson camped at the bottom of the canyon. He wanted David Briggs to produce him. That's crazy. Wow. So your girlfriend's dad ran into Charles Manson? I read a lot about Charles Manson because when I was living in California, I wasn't into what they were doing, but I was starting to get into American music a lot, like Neil Young, of course, especially the Beach Boys. I had an era there where I was really into them because of the connection with the Beatles and the Stones. There was a bit of a triangle thing because the Stones were kind of copying the Beatles all the time, although I love the Stones. But the Beatles were also influenced, and then there was the Beach Boys, who had this great run early on, and then they were kind of on a downward trajectory at the end, towards actually in the 60s and 70s, and then they became revitalized by Pet Sounds, which was totally different from the happy surf songs that made them famous in the first place. And I got really into it, and of course Charles Manson is really tied into all this, culture of Southern California in those years, and so that is crazy. Artists of all kinds live or lived there, I think, in the canyon. Well, I should check that out. Blues is about that, right? Revolution Blues. Oh yeah. Oh, Charles too. Yeah. They had a ranch up there. Neil Young lived with Linda Ronstadt. Oh yeah. After he left the ranch, he lived with all the members of the Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. Then met up with David Briggs and went solo. Wow, that's crazy. Greetings from Missouri. what mics do you use to mic up the cabs? Hello, Riff Jiff. Good to see you. What microphones? I don't have them here, but I'll tell you, 90% of the time I use a 57. That's my go-to. And I have a few. There's another one called the Sennheiser 906, not the 609, 906, but they're both the same, but the 609 is a bit older. And if I can get a Royer 1-to-1, I pair it up with the 57. Those are my main ones. Then I also use Sennheiser 421. That's right. When I started out, that's one of the things we were talking about studio. I don't know when you got in, but we're talking about studio experiences. And the first thing I noticed when I was recording, like everybody's using the same things. So they were using 57 and 421. So they would take the 421 off the drums, because when you were done recording drums, they would take the 421 off and stick it on the cabinet. And that was a cool thing to learn. And then, of course, now everybody knows it. But back then, it was kind of a big deal. You know, I went back to Italy and I was like, man, this is what they do in America, you know, in 57 and 421. I saw Andy Jones. He would use two 57s, one straight up and one at 45 degrees. Seems to sound great. But I really enjoy the 57 or the 906 with Royer 121. Although the Royer is a bit dark, so with the big distortion, like maybe the Marshalls, if they're boomy, then it's a bit boomy, so you might have to use the high pass filter. What else do I have? Those are my main ones. But you know, it doesn't really matter that much. If you have a 57, that's probably 80% of your sound or 70%. And then the other microphone, it just have to sound a bit different. So maybe any large diaphragm condenser mic, if you have one, be careful about the pressure level that it can absorb, so don't break it. But that will do, because all you want is just a bit of body, you know, because the 57 will be kind of piercing, so you just want a little bit of body. But 57 is my go-to. If I had to pick one microphone, I would pick the Shure 57, 100% of the time. Yeah, what do you guys use? Is any of you using actual microphones, or do you use, you know, simulators and all that? One thing I really enjoy, Riff Jiff, is the Universal Audio. What do you call it? What do you call it? The aux. And that kind of takes care of the miking. Having good luck with my Royer and 421. Oh yeah, you are on the right track. You have a Royer and a 421. So maybe the Royer and the 421, they're different. One is ribbon, of course, but the 421 will give you kind of the sound of the Royer in a guitar situation. They don't sound alike, but when you're using it on a cab, you might use the 421 and the Royer kind of for the same thing, to get more body and more bass on the sound, to contrast it with the 57 being so bright and, you know, to the point. So maybe you want to add a 57 to your collection. It doesn't sound like, you know, with those two mics, they're like 3 or 4 times or 10 times more expensive than the 57. So you can find a 57 anywhere. And I think it's a mic you should have if you do guitars. Not necessarily because it sounds better, because live I tend to bring my 906, the Sennheiser. But it's not that it sounds better, but it's just that it's a sound we associate with rock guitars. So it's something I would certainly use. And one other thing, if you want any advice with that, I've seen most engineers, the good ones, they know what they're doing. They mix the two signals at the console, not in the DAW. You know, that was when I was doing in consoles. That's when I went to studios. I had no idea. They were all using consoles and tape. And maybe things have changed now, and for the sake of convenience, they would have it on 2 different tracks. But a lot of time, they were not afraid at all. They were not at all concerned with mixing the 2 microphones onto 1 track. So they would have 2 mics coming in and only 1 track going out to be recorded with the balance they thought worked better at you know, at the desk. But they wouldn't print 2 microphones usually. They would just print 1, and that was it. So 2 mics combined into 1 sound, print that. And I'm still a big fan of that, actually. If you see my sessions, they're so simple, right? I barely ever, I think almost never, go beyond 32, 40 tracks without counting. You know, I have buses and I use that, you know. I have group buses for drums and guitars, but I rarely use more than, I don't want to say 30, but probably 30 tracks is enough. I use them in conjunction. The 57 adds the higher end. Still using the console here. Wow, what console are you using? That's one thing I'm really been looking at, you know, getting into consoles again, but I don't know. You use a Sennheiser MK4 and a 57. And which one is the MK4? I think I should know which one it is. Maybe I'll look it up. All right, so hello everyone. I see there's quite a few people joining us now. Please do join the chat room. You know, they're all a friendly bunch. And if you have any questions you want to ask me about guitar, about anything, if I know what to, you know, the answer, I will share it with you. If not, I won't pretend. I'll just tell you that I don't know. So consoles, I looked at all kinds of stuff. Oh, I gotcha. TLM. Okay, I know the TLM. Yeah. Wow. You know, there's so many brands now. I have one of the strange ones. Have you seen the one that look like a bee? It's called the King Bee, I think. It sounds great. I found it on offer. It was like 400 and something. I paid like 100 for it, and I couldn't say no, so I just bought it. I have no idea what it sounded like. And then on the way back home, I was on the train and I was just looking at reviews saying how great it was, and it does sound great. Hello, Red Walrus. Good to see you again. Allen Heath. Okay, so with Allen Heath, you know, Soundcraft, those desks, I'm always kind of concerned. I know they sound good, and for the price, I think they sound great. But that's the point, right? So I'm using Universal Audio. I have some great preamps, not many because I do most stuff. It's like 1 or 2 channels. But I'm thinking, right? I'm very interested in using an actual console, but I think I'd be lowering the quality of audio. So good consoles are so expensive, not only to buy but to maintain. And then I can go to the lower thing like Allen Heath and Soundcraft and even Mackie's. But I just think that sound-wise, they wouldn't be up to the task. I mean, they would be, of course, good enough to record, but they would be worse than the Apollos, right? So I'm trying to find a way to, I don't know, I'm thinking about it. You know, consoles have really always intrigued me as a workflow, but there's also the Tascam thing. They say they sound great, but then you can't use them. The big ones, you can't use them to control your DAW. So that's another thing. And I'm looking into the hybrid thing, but I'm afraid of just getting into deeper water than I want, you know, and then wasting a bunch of time setting everything up and the thing's not working as I'm used to. So I don't know, I'm looking into it. But you like your Allen Heath? I know they sound great, and for the price, you know, they're amazing. Just using mic for acoustic. Neighbors would not like loud amps. Of course they would. They love it. Try it. Try it and report back to us next week. So anyway, I always do it, but I think it's fair, only fair to bring attention to you guys with your projects. Desafinados, his name is Alex, and he lives at, no, I'm just kidding, but his name is Alex, and he's putting out a new album, and it will be out in a couple of weeks. Alex, you let us know when, and share some links, don't be shy. Okay, as soon as it's out, share some links and we'll go and check it out. Leave some reviews for him, you know, help him out. He's a great guitar player. I have an ISA 2 plus warm audio. Wow, that's cool. 412 preamps in the console are just as hot. Oh, really? Well, you are tempting me now. Stop, Riff Jiff. Stop. I'm gonna go out and buy a 48 channel Allen Heath. So yeah, that's what I've been reading about a Tascam too, that it's so great, you know, the DQ and everything. I'm not too concerned about EQ, it's just a ergonomic thing, you know. I wouldn't mind going back to consoles. But you know, then you have to keep in mind that a lot of people that have great consoles, SSLs and Neves, they're kind of getting rid of them and moving into the box. And then also, like how many inputs and outputs do you want, right? Because here I have 10 plus the 16 extra 8, so there's a lot of them, right? But then I would have to have everything plugged into the console all the time. I don't know, it's but I've been thinking about it. I'm just afraid of, you know, things that sometimes look good on paper and in your head, and then when you're there, you're like, why did I do this? So I'm trying to think of that as you know, keep that in mind. But I am curious about going back to consoles. I think it has to do with, you know, it's like synths. I can't get into soft synths. I tried, like the iPad is great, but I get bored so quickly on the screen, whereas with my synths, I can spend 5 hours just on the Moog going, touching a knob and see what it sounds like. And I'm afraid the same thing can happen with plugins. You know, EQs sucks to use the mouse on an EQ, but then I can get Neve EQs, I can have APIs, because the UAD stuff sounds really good. So the thing is, do I want to give that up and then use some other kind of hardware EQ that will not sound as good? That's my main thing. I still use the preamps. I tend to use the Focusrite a lot on guitars. Also, the console is interfaced with a stack of clarets. Okay, so I got you. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big change in setup, but it is something I've been looking at. As a matter of fact, I had a little something I wanted to show you about the Moog. Have you guys seen this? What is it? Let's see, this one? Yeah. Have you guys seen it? That's a problem with Moog. They make all these packages and they look so great. I bought a couple of things from them, and the box is cooler than the synth. And so these are like little sets with DFAM and Mother 32, and the other one I think it's DFAM and Subharmonicon or something. So they give you a set, and just the way you look at it, you know, you look at it and you think, oh, I could do so many cool things with that, right? Just because of the way it looks, they package it in a way that you kind of see the potential. I've been tempted, but no thanks. You know, it's expensive, and you'll soon see why I'm trying to save money now, because you know, the changes that are coming will be kind of expensive to to manage. But that's a cool synth. Especially the DFAM. The DFAM sounds great. But anyway, I think it was just a lesson in packaging, the Moog thing, because all those synths have been out for a while, but now they combine them, and they kind of make you feel like you want to buy them again. Like I didn't buy the first time, but they're like, why didn't you buy the first time? Let me package it in a different way, and now you'll want to buy it. And I do, but I won't. Let's see. Okay, I think I covered all your questions. The console is great, but I find myself going hybrid more and more. Yeah, that's a thing. See, that's the only thing that kind of keeping me back, is how everybody who has consoles are moving more in the box. But certainly there's something to be said about, like I have control, I have, these are the Yukon. I do use control surfaces because I can't mix by moving one track at a time. It drives me crazy. So I have my setup here that I can mix. But then, you know, EQ is, you know what I would like is really a system. I think Studio One, I think PreSonus is doing it. I think PreSonus have the controllers that are mapped to their plugins, and then you can actually use them as if you were using a plugin. But I would be just happy with a little setup that mirrors my SSL plugins. If I could have that, then I'd be happy. Like, I would even pay for 16 channel, maybe even 24. You know, even if it's a bit expensive, have 24 channels with EQ and compression, but the sound comes from the plugin. If Brainworks did that, I would just commit to using that console, and everything else would revolve around it. If UAD does it somehow, then maybe the console itself can run the plugin, because I can't run 40 instances of the SSL on the Apollo. But if they had something like that, I'll be so tempted to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to commit to that format and have a console that's just a control surface, but 100% integrated with the software. And then everything else we kind of have to adapt, right? So maybe I can't use that plugin from that company anymore, then fine. I would be willing to give that up. But so far, nobody's done that. Maybe Universal Audio will do something like that, because they've been branching out with Luna. You know, Luna is kind of sold to you, well, not sold to you because it's free unless you don't have a sound card. So you need a sound card, a Universal Audio sound card to use it. But Luna is kind of given to you in that perspective that you use it as you would use a regular studio with console and outboard gear. So maybe they're coming up with something. I have no inside information or anything, but I wouldn't mind that. If Universal Audio made a full-fledged control surface, expandable, that has all the controls for our usual channel strip, then I would be tempted to buy it. And it would probably be expensive, but that's something, you know, the risk of those things is that if you then get tired of the software, or the software for some reason changes, then you're stuck with this huge expensive control surface that you can't use anymore. So that's another concern. If you have a good console, it will work forever unless you stop fixing it. So a synth doesn't have to have keys. Okay, I thought a synth was a kind of keyboard. Well, you can attach a keyboard to those synthesizers, or just use a sequencer. They have sequencers built in. A lot of synthesizers are just modules, and you can plug any keyboard into it. So for example, let me see if I can show you this. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this is a MIDI controller. Oh man, I'm gonna break it. See that? This is a MIDI controller that has MIDI out and MIDI in, and you can use it to control your synthesizers. And this one actually has arpeggiators and sequencers, and then you can send it to whatever synth you want. So your synth does not have to have a keyboard. As a matter of fact, some people play synthesizer, they're not keyboard players, so they wouldn't know what to do with the keys anyway, and they make some great music. So you certainly don't need a keyboard, but my favorite ones have keyboards. But brands sometimes they would do the same synth with the keyboard and just a module. Like the micro, what do you call it? I have that one. That was the Minilog. The Minilog is a great synth, and you want synth that's a great one. It's not expensive at all. It's 3 oscillators, 2 analog, 1 digital, and the Minilog XD is called. That one comes in both keyboard format and just module. But if you want a cheap synth, then the best synth probably for the money, maybe it would be the Behringer, what is it called? The DeepMind 12 voice, and it's about $600. So plug my keyboard into a synth module, that sounds great. Oh yeah, as long as you have MIDI out or CV out, the voltage control. I have a cheap Casio LK270. Don't know if it will work well with the synth module. As long as you have MIDI out, probably the Casio doesn't have CV out, but as long as you have MIDI out or USB out to the computer and then a USB cable to the sound module, then you'll be fine. So what time is it? 7:30? About an hour, which I think is the right amount. Maybe we should do this long 2.5-hour videos. Isn't it cool? Maybe maybe later on, after what I have to do, the changes I have to make. Maybe we can do some long sessions. Maybe I will go on at like 3 in the morning or something. I've been tempted to do it. I'm embracing. It's taken me a long time, but I've been really embracing the format of community online, because I think of the virus thing. I always said, I don't care about that. I'm in the real world, but really the real world has changed because of the pandemic, I think, and most people have found that the online experience, people like me, I'm a bit dumb, and I always thought that it was a worse experience, but I found it very interesting, because you can say all you want about being there in person, but I would never be able to join you guys from Canada and from America and from Spain and from South America and from Asia and from India and wherever you guys are from. That would have been impossible. So I've been really embracing it, and slowly I'll be doing more and more. But the condition to me is that it doesn't take time away from music. So all this is very interesting, but to me the proof is in the music. So even just as a matter of why you're doing things, well, because you need some kind of applications of what you're talking about. So I wouldn't be sitting here talking about stuff if I had never done any music, because then why would you even listen, right? So the music comes first, but I will embrace this more and more. So don't be surprised if you get a notification at 2 in the morning that I'm live doing something, maybe writing up a little piece of music and showing it to you, or whatever, because I do call my friends at strange hours, 4 in the morning, I'm like, hey, listen to this melody, and maybe I will start doing that here on YouTube. Who knows? But so hit the bell if you want to be woken up at 3 in the morning. I'm looking for maybe 200 max. 200 max for a synth. Will probably have to be a mono synth for 200. I'll think of something and I'll tell you. But 200 is pretty cheap. So while I wait for your final questions, Okay, bye, Ricky. We're closing up too. So I will give you a second to post any questions you want. And if they're short, I will do them today. If not, we'll do them next week. I've been talking to people around the world since about 1996. Yeah, like me too, kind of, but this YouTube thing is kind of getting out of control now. I'm like, I have to show the guys this and that. And so yeah, the only thing I wouldn't be able to do is, become some kind of person, a different person online. I can't do it. I know people who do it. They're like, they have this, it's a business kind of, like they have their YouTube persona, which brings a lot of views and a lot of this and a lot of that. And then they're totally different offline. But I can't do it. I just wouldn't be able to do it. I would be like, oh my God, I have to go online. Let me just, be some other person. So that won't happen, but maybe we'll do some very long videos. I don't know, something will happen. In the meantime, thank you very much for being here. I'm still waiting. If you have any questions, I'll answer them next week. You're welcome, that is Art. I hope that you can try that exercise and see if it works for you. Thank you very much for being here. For those who have asked, there is no Patreon. So for now, at least, I don't see the idea of doing Patreon right now because I want to give the information to everyone. But if you want to contribute to the channel, maybe not for these chats if you like them, but especially for the teaching stuff I do, you can find links below to contribute a bit to the channel if you want. Whatever I make on the channel, I use to improve the channel. So don't think I'm going to go out and buy a Ferrari with it. And what else? You can also get music, stream it. You can buy it down there. There's links. And if you want to improve your technique, there's 2 books, Legato and Alternate Picking. Some of these people in the chat room can vouch for them because they have it, and I think they're happy with it. But don't take my word for it. We'll let them talk about it. Let's see. My book links are down. Well, that's weird. You can try copying and pasting the link into your browser. I know some people have had problems, but they might work. You can stream or teach if you want to play at any time, and always will be something watching, I think. And maybe we'll try the Twitch thing. I just have no idea about Twitch, so I have to learn a little bit about that first. All right? So thanks, everyone. It's good to see you. I know there's some of you who are not in the chat room. Please don't be shy next time. Join us, and we'll have some fun, and we'll get to know each other, and so on. Any questions you want, or you want me to go to next week, write in the comments below. Hit that bell if you haven't done so, and if you want to spread the word a little bit, I would really appreciate it. I will see you next week. Tuesday, there's a new cohort coming up. I don't know which one it is, but it's going to be fun. All right? Thanks, everyone, for being here. Have a great rest of the weekend and a great week ahead of you. I will see you very soon with some news. Maybe I'll be able to share something in a little bit. Next week, I will try to be here, but if I'm not, I will let you know in a post in the YouTube section, on the post section of the, what is it called? The community tab. I will just write a post. Okay, I will try to be here anyway, but if not, maybe I'll prepare a little something. Bye, everyone, and I will see you very soon.